What's going on YouTube? Welcome to another video. And we're here doing a back workout, showing you some rows here. You know the drill. We are slowly but surely trying to climb this ladder to get back to where we were. You know, rolling all that weight, obviously not from the floor. We're going to try to do these more bodybuilding style, just more bang for the buck, feeling a better pump, and just change things up. I may, from time to time, do the Pendlay row from the ground for strength, but I wanted to focus on like the more traditional bent over one. It's been interesting. I'm feeling the pump almost right away, like you would from almost like a cable exercise, which is really cool. So just gonna keep doing it for variety, and then also less weight, so not as much stress on the bicep. Let that heal more. You know, build these further connections, and just kind of go from there. So I am starting to feel it in my lower back though, with being bent over and stuff. So gonna really work on that and just try to take my time and, you know, progressively overload in a way that makes sense. Various angles here, and using the grips just because I get clammy hands. I'm telling you, my grip isn't the greatest on like a deadlift or something. For 1 or 2, 3 reps, I'm usually good, but when it comes to rowing for 8 to 10 reps, at least with the focus and grip and to make sure everything's nice and safe, definitely going to use the Versas or the Amazon knockoff brand. I don't even know what they are, but they work just as well, if not better. T-bar rows here, and these, it's got enough of a grip where I don't need them. If I do start going heavier, I probably will use them, but that's going to be a time away. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing, you know, keep working out, keep hitting the things that got me to where I'm at, and just kind of go from there. And ultimately, you know, get to a baseline where we can maybe add in new exercises or start really overloading and things like that. So really happy with how things are going. It's been like, at the time of the video right now though, it's been about 4 months since the surgery, the initial. So finally starting to come back and feel normal. I was feeling normal a little bit earlier, but you know, this is my first serious injury and hopefully the last, knocking on wood, that I don't want to do it again. So we're going to take things in stride and be a little bit more cautious with how we train, at least going forward. So I'm happy for that. Now, it's going to be a lot of work to, you know, get through that mentally, at least with the heavier stuff. I'm going to slowly take my time and, you know, get back to where I'm at. But, you know, we've done a lot of the work here. I feel like we're just, you know, adding structure to everything else. We're building up the foundation around the injured tendon and everything that happened there. So I'm hoping, you know, these months of training and everything are helping solidify that, make that a little bit safer, more stable, and then just trying to figure all that out. So at least that's my logic. I don't know if things scientifically work that way, but, you know, I like training. I like doing things that are going to change my body, you know, challenge me, and I want to keep that up. So it's definitely going to be exactly what my focus is going to be going forward. And hopefully we can get this band off soon and control all this other stuff. So the human body is pretty incredible. It can do a lot of things. It can recover from a lot of things, and ultimately pretty adaptable. So you just have to introduce that stress. You have to introduce those challenges in order to take advantage of that. But do them in stride. You know, don't be doing dumb stuff and then getting injured and then having to go through this process over and over again. Just like I said, take things in stride, do your best, and then reevaluate when you need to. You don't always need to be going balls to the wall. You can focus on other things, whether it's getting reps, slowing things down, taking some time off. You don't always have to lift heavy, and that's something that I've had to learn, because I always like to feel like I was making incremental progress at the gym every time I went in. You know, slowly but surely pushing past things and doing that. But it's not always the case. The body doesn't really work that way. You can get used to how weight feels, like neuromuscularly, but you can still build muscle with, you know, weights that are not always new and challenging. It's just a mechanism for change. If you can make those extra increments, you can get a lot of carryover there. But it really depends on, you know, what your goals are and things like that. So as long as you're being consistent and moving and changing things, that's almost like a guaranteed way to, you know, make all that progress and kind of go from there. So that's kind of the focus of all that there. And ultimately, you can do it in every aspect, whether it's upper body, lower body. So taking you into lower body here, doing our Hatfield squats, which I've been learning to like a lot more. Just a nice way to overload squats and feel weight without actually doing too much damage to myself. And balance has always been an issue on squats. The deeper I go, coming out of the hole is always a little bit of a challenge. So I'm just trying to find ways to make the lift interesting, introduce, more stress, make things a little bit more interesting for myself. And then, you go through changes and stages of, overloading stuff. So we'll see if any of this carries over, but you can always use different pieces of equipment and kind of go from there. So I used to shy away from the Hatfield, but started doing them and it felt really good. I was getting training stimulus I hadn't gotten before, and sometimes you kind of need that to break out of a rut or to put more weight on the bar. So that's mainly my focus for that. And to feel heavy weight again, because I was getting to a point with the SSB where, it's a pretty steep curve when you start adding weight. You really start to feel that push forward, and I kind of do miss the, back squats, the high bar stuff where you could do a little bit more weight, and I just haven't been in a position where I want to feel that again, especially with the injury. So I don't know if I'll ever go back to straight bar squatting, but I still do want to squat. So the SSB and all the different things you can do with it have been super helpful to me. And I can squat. Obviously there's other solutions you can do, but I like my barbell, my, free weight type of training. That's always been my preferred method. I like the challenge. I like, being able to carry over into other aspects of life. Machines are nice for pumps and everything. Kind of putting, a cherry or whipped cream on top of the sundae, but you'll see people with different muscle density, different levels of strength when they do a lot of the free weight training. And that's always been the bread and butter of what I've done. And I've always preferred it that way. You don't always have to do like a movement like this. You can focus and do other things. You can always come back to squatting. There's other ways to do it. I just feel like it's the most efficient with the barbell and plates. It's just the ability to overload, the ability to add more weight. You just have so many more options. And, your creativity is kind of the only limiting factor with what you're doing. So you really just have to decide, going on like, what do I want to do? Do I want to get really strong at this? Am I just looking to push myself, get more stimulus? What do I want to do? And my goal has always been to get as strong as I can. So specifically here on deadlifts, going slow, doing both sumo and conventional to kind of get a good well-rounded, go back to what I was doing. And I feel it's done me pretty well. So just have to work on getting tight. No, look at that, hurricane, jeez. Look at that, I'm like so fried I can't even get my natural disasters right. Earthquakes here, and I didn't notice this while I was pulling, but it actually looks kind of funny. I'm surprised the camera didn't knock over. A little bit of an expensive camera, but here we are. Finished that set, and then I moved into a spot that was, okay, maybe not as stable because it's still shaking like that. Pretty funny. If there was more weight on the bar, it'd definitely be more impressive. But just going back to what I like to do and all the different lifts that I've trained to do, happy to come back up and be able to do the weight that I'm doing and surpass it eventually. So belt squat here, just for more stimulus, some added, leg work, some added squat focus. And I really do feel these in the lower body now that I've made the modifications I did. You're not going to get the same level of effect with the weight and the movement like you would with like leg extensions or ham curls. There's a difference in the amount of stress that's put on the body, and it shapes not only your training, your neuromuscular system, but also the overload on the body that you can handle. Obviously, the more weight you can lift safely, the more dense your bones are going to be, the more resilient to injury, breakage, stuff like that. Assuming you're doing things correctly and recovering. That's kind of what my focus has been. That's why a lot of people recommend, weight training to help reverse like osteoporosis or people, getting older and their body's starting to break down. You'll notice people that lifted weights, they tend to look better, they tend to look younger, less injuries, and just overall be healthier all around. And I think that's been the back end focus of this. Obviously, like the aesthetics and being big and strong is nice too, but there is health carryover that's less superficial than that. And I think a lot of people kind of miss that. But when you've been training for as long as I have, for consistently as I can. It like becomes a part of you. It's habitual. Your body knows and is prepared for when you're going to go to the gym, and it's kind of fun to experience that. You'll kind of feel that longing when you're not there, or you'll feel like, hey, I have to go and do stuff or whatever. Like that's just, the thing I have to do. And I think it's really fun and cool, and met a lot of cool people doing it. Basically my social time too, though, assuming, the right people are around. There's just so many benefits to it. And then just watching yourself grow and change, kind of the whole idea for this whole YouTube channel was just like kind of documenting my own stuff, because I was doing all this stuff, but there was nothing to show for it, and outside of like physique and body wise and stuff like that. But when it comes to like looking back on memories, to have these videos would be kind of cool. So, and we live in the age of social media, so you never know what could happen, which is another strategy I'm using to kind of do the things that I'm doing. But that's the video for today. Going to try to keep pumping out more stuff, get more consistent. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching the latest video. If you want to help support the channel, I actually own my own wet shaving and grooming e-commerce website where everything's handmade by me. It's www.apexsoaps.com, and you can get a 10% off code using wet shaver. We've got some cool scents here. We've got some Coca-Cola scents, a horchata scent, traditional barbershop, just some really cool stuff. And you can purchase samples or you can buy the whole set. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out via email. Be quick to respond. Thanks for watching.